Thank you again for joining me. I'm Pat Kiernan. This is Pat's Papers. We do this every weekday morning, going through the nation's newspapers to find some of the highlights for you. Here's some of what we found for you today. The Obama administration's plan for the economy dominates the front pages again today. The Washington Post has a couple of pieces on the financial crisis. David Cho reports that President Obama's top advisors are in the final stages now of debating several options to try to right the financial system, many of which may prove unpopular and in some cases carry significant risk of failure. Down the page, one part of the Democratic view, Republican criticism of the stimulus package in many cases is focused on the price tag. Some Democrats are voicing a separate critique that the plan may fall short in its broader goal of transforming the U.S. economy over the long term. This is also a big story on the front page of the New York Times. The story here noting that it would be a vast 2-year investment in education if this stimulus plan goes through as planned, more than double the current budget for the Department of Education. One Republican critical of the health care giveaways planned says it's raining money in Washington right now. He was a giant of the American novel. Author John Updike died yesterday at the age of 76. The Reading Eagle is the local paper in the part of Pennsylvania where Updike was born. The story says his novels and short stories exposed an undercurrent of ambivalence and disappointment in small-town middle-class America. The front page tribute in the New York Times is glowing. It says Updike was this country's one true all-around man of letters, a literary decathlete. The book business has changed a lot since Updike started. Amazon is sending word of a press event on February 9th to be held at the Morgan Library in New York. The last time Amazon did something like this, it was for the release of the original Kindle book reader in November 2007. The assumption is this will be the unveiling of the updated Kindle on Amazon's home turf in Seattle. The Times technology columnist Briar Dudley says Amazon's move toward a color display is likely at some point for the successful book reader, but that technology may not be ready for this version. The two stories I pulled from the LA Times could not be more different. One about death, the other about new life. Irvin Lupo killed his wife and their 5 young children after he lost his job. The story says amid record job losses and economic distress for millions of families, the killings struck a chord. The other story, after the birth of the octuplets this week, there are questions in the Times about whether doctors did enough to prevent such a risky pregnancy. The hospital is not releasing details about whether the babies were conceived naturally. Experts interviewed say it's highly unlikely that there wasn't some fertility treatment involved. The Miami Herald with a front-page story about Israeli troops in Gaza and accusations they killed Palestinian children who were carrying white flags. The story includes an interview with a woman who says she watched her grandchildren being shot. Israel rejects any suggestion that civilians were targeted. Pictures in the New York Daily News today of the Carter Hotel. It's in Times Square. It attracts many visitors because it's cheap, but the reviews on the TripAdvisor website name this hotel the dirtiest in the country. The manager, not particularly apologetic. He says visitors come there for value. Their expectations are in line with the hotel's 1-star rating. Also from New York, the man who went after trans fats in your French fries is at it again. New York City Health Commissioner Thomas Frieden wants to take on salt now. Here's an excerpt from the story in the Times. It says, "Don't go hiding your salt shakers. The city's not going to go after the seasoning people add at the table or in the kitchen. That makes up only 11% of the salt people eat." Dr. Frieden's targets are packaged foods and mass-produced restaurant meals, which contribute 80% of the sodium in the average American diet. News about your afternoon cup of coffee in the Wall Street Journal. Starbucks trying to cut costs by shutting down its decaf brewers after 12 noon. If you want decaf in the afternoon, you can still get it, but they will only brew it on demand. Also in the Journal, the largest insurer in the country giving up on Florida. State Farm does not think it can make money with the home insurance rates Florida regulators are allowing, so they'll just stop doing business there. Finally, to the Super Bowl. It seems like half of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette is dedicated to football news today. Writer Timothy McNulty comes up with some tests to figure out how big a Steelers fan you are. Did you name your first child after Rocky Blyer? Did you flirt with dyeing your black and white cat gold? On the other side of this story, the fans in Arizona, the front page of the Gilbert Tribune, shows Joe Johan and his buddies with their magic bus. They've outfitted this old bus with a satellite dish and are driving the Cardinals on Sunday. Still with the Super Bowl, to finish up from Boston, a story that says the Bay State's hardcore killers, rapists, and thieves will get to watch this Sunday's Super Bowl on 117 brand new TVs purchased with the okay of state prison honchos. These controversial new televisions were bought with prison canteen funds at a total cost of $77,000. And that's our report for today. I'm Pat Kiernan. Thanks for being with us today. We do this every weekday, and you can always go to patspapers.com where you will find the rundown of the stories we featured today and links you can click on to get to the individual newspapers where those stories were published.